Hello, BookTube. This is Lindy, Lindy's Magpie Reads. Welcome to my channel. So, this is another Friday Reads, and I got lots to tell you. I'll start with the personal stuff. I went to visit puppies. We are going to be getting a puppy in March. They're still too young to leave their mom, but and Frida's got something to say about that. Yeah, she's gonna have a little sister soon. Anyway, here she is. What else did I do? Went to the library and I made a vlog about that. So if you haven't seen it, I'll include a link. I can see what my walk is like in the winter when I go there. And the most important thing for me is I'm working with physiotherapists now to recover from my concussion and broken wrist. So I've got 3 different physiotherapists. So Nick is helping me regain flexibility in my wrist and my hand. And today I started knitting again for the first time. I'll have a little video about that at the end for those of you who are knitters. I know some of the people who are following me and that I follow are knitters as well as readers, and I can't remember which one of yous they are, so please leave me a comment in the notes. Oh, hello, Frida. And the other 2 physiotherapists have to do with concussion recovery. So I didn't realize that I've got whiplash, which is also hindering, I guess, blood flow to the brain and quicker recovery, but also ongoing headaches. And so Jasmine is working with me on that, and Cody is working with me about my vision. So I mentioned last week that I've got convergence insufficiency, where the closer something is, the harder it is for me to have my 2 eyes make what I see into one, and especially with books, you know, the distance that a book is away from me. Oh, Frida. Say hello. But now I know from Cody, this is something that I found out from my optometrist. Cody has also discovered that there's something else happening, and I'm seeing multiples. Well, I knew that I was seeing multiples, but it's not the same as the double vision. Each eye is seeing multiples. So let's see, I'm looking at the letter B. I'll see 3 letter B's all, you know, piled on top of each other. Each one is distinct, but because they're on top of each other, when I'm reading something, that's part of, you know, what's creating the difficulty, in addition to not being able to focus. So both eyes are seeing multiples. Anyway, that issue is being worked on, and hopefully that can be resolved soon. And yes, meantime, I have finished 2 audiobooks and 2 graphic novels and 3 Indigenous children's books. So I'm going to tell you about those. I read The Brilliant Abyss. Let's see, the subtitle is a long one, hang on. True Tales of Exploring the Deep Sea, Discovering Hidden Life, and Selling the Seabed. So the author of that is Helen Scales. She's a marine biologist, and she reads her own audiobook. She does a good job. So what she's talking about is all of these new discoveries at deeper levels in the ocean, new discoveries about the sea life that exists there. So, for example, all types of jelly-based life forms. Some of them are so delicate that even, you know, a fish swimming by could swish its tail and could tear, you know, these creatures. Yeah, amazing life forms. The fish tend to be really slow to mature and reproduce. And there's all kinds of life form on the seabed that, you know, she says every time a research crew goes out, they find new things. And one of the big concerns is that there's starting to be deep sea fishing. The arguments that people make in favor of deep sea fishing is that even though these fish tend to be, you know, really bony and unappealing to eat as is, they can be ground up for fish meal and, you know, can feed the hungry children of the world. However, as the author points out, what's happening is this fish meal is going into pet food most of the time. And the fish stocks at the lower levels are starting to be really depleted because, as I mentioned, they don't reproduce quickly, and they're part of an ecosystem that we know so little about. But even more concerning is seabed mining. So these companies around the world are proposing mining the seabed, and one of the things they want to collect are these abyssal nodules that you know, they're like potato sized or something, and they have manganese and other minerals in them. But most of them are things that we get terrestrially as well. So these nodules are the slowest growing process that we know of. You know, it takes 10 million years for one of these nodules to grow from a pea size to a golf ball size. And some research has been done to find out, just a little bit of research to find out what seabed mining, what effect it would have on the living things in the ocean. And so there was an experimental drag of a big area of the seabed, and 30 years later, none of the life has returned. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, it's very informative, important, and also pretty depressing. I really like that audiobook, and it was really good to pair it with the Rachel Carson audiobook about the sea that I had read last week, because she was talking about what we knew about in the 1950s, and this is, you know, right up to 2020s. It came out in 2021. The other audiobook I listened to is a novel, How Beautiful We Were by Imbolo Mbue, who also wrote Behold the Dreamer, which I also loved. And How Beautiful We Were has 6 points of view, and the story is set in a fictional African country and in a village where, starting in about the 1970s, an American oil company has come to extract oil right next to their village. And their water is being poisoned, the air is being poisoned, the soil is being poisoned, so the food that they grow is also poisoned. Their children have started dying, and it's a tragic story, but it's also inspiring because the people in this remote village, they are determined to do something about it. Their connection to the land is very strong. They don't want to just move away. The land is part of who they are. And so, you know, they're the underdog taking on this, not only this corporation, but also the corrupt government of their country. And, okay, now that, now Frida is going to adjust my phone for me. No. So I like stories that are told from multiple viewpoints, and I especially like the viewpoint of the children. It's a collective voice, and it does start when they're young, like around 10 years old, but we follow this age group into their adulthood, when they marry and they're raising families and concerned about their kids, and so on. So in the audiobook, there are 6 different narrators. I wrote them down. Prentice Onayemi, Janina Edwards, Dion Graham, J.D. Jackson, Allison Johnson, and Lisa Renee Pitts. So this whole audio production is fantastic. Highly recommend it. Yes. Okay, now, graphic novels. In my library video, I showed you that I came home with Boys Run the Riot. So this is volume 1 in a manga series by Keito Gaku. It's translated by Leo McDonagh. This came out in 2020 in Japan and 2021 in North America. So very up to date. And the mangaka, the comic artist, Keito Gaku, is a trans man. And the central character in this story, it's a high school setting, but Rio is trans. And so right on the first page, you can see I hate my uniform. Every morning it reminds me that I'm female. Aside from that cover on that first page, it's not in color, but fashion or clothing is very important to Rio, and Rio gets together with another student to start a fashion brand. It kind of makes sense. There's Rio dressed in the clothes they like. There's another bit so you can see kind of what the art is like. There is a note from the editor, and the editor at Kodansha is Tiff Joshua, what's his name? Tiff Joshua Ferrantini, yes, and also known as TJ. And TJ is also trans, a trans man, or non-binary, I think, is how they identify. And included an editor's note. So there's a panel that shows Rio binding their breasts. And there's a note there to bind responsibly. Please bind responsibly. And a reference to the back of the book where there's notes about what that means. Yes, so, and speaking of clothing and trans men, I have a trans man family member who got this t-shirt for me. Books and knitting, very appropriate. I'm wearing it for this video. The other graphic novel is this great big fat, well, heavy library edition of Umbrella Academy. And this has all of the issues of the Apocalypse suite. It is by Gerard, who is the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, and Gabriel, who's a Brazilian cartoonist. And I think I'm going to do a separate video talking about the great art in here as well as the themes. I just have many, many thoughts about this book, which I found, yes, macabre and bizarre, but also really surprising and fun and funny, actually. There's dark satire, there's tongue-in-cheek humor, and even the violence. Like, there are scenes where, you know, there's brains getting blown up, but it's just so ridiculous that I didn't find it horrific at all. It's actually a nice break from too much reality. And it's a superhero story that goes against the grain of most superhero comics. I would say that Alan Moore's The Watchmen kind of paved the way for this kind of story, because it's about a blended family, very dysfunctional, and the psychological realism, the relationship between the siblings is just so great. It's really well done. Yeah, so I find that a big draw in this. So now 3 Indigenous children's books. Aggie and Mudgy. This is by Wendy Proverbs. The subtitle is The Journey, I think it's, yeah, The Journey of 2 Cascadena Children. And it is, so it's a chapter book, elementary school level. And it opens with a map, because these 2 children in the 1920s went on a journey of over 1,600 kilometers with a priest who was taking them to a residential school. The story is written as, I guess, kind of a roman à clef, because the historical story is being recounted in the present day. A grandmother in Vancouver is talking to her granddaughter about these 2 girls and, you know, the various legs of the trip to get them from Lower Post, which I think is now called Delu, in the northeastern part of British Columbia, all the way to this school that was more in the lower part of British Columbia in the center. They travel by riverboat and mail truck and a paddle wheeler and steamship on the ocean, and then by train from Prince Rupert inward. So it was a trip that took about 6 weeks, and this is from a true story. The author's mother was the youngest of the 2 sisters, and so this was the trip that she took to spend 10 years at residential school. Now, it's different from pretty much any other residential school story that I've read, because this is all about the trip getting there, and the story pretty much ends as they, you know, when they get to the school and go inside. And it makes it an adventure story, you know, all the stuff that they see along the way and the different forms of transport, but also brings home, brings to the heart how far away some of these children were from their families and their home communities. And nobody knows why these girls were taken so far instead of going to Whitehorse, which would have just been a few days' journey, but possibly had something to do with the priest having, business along the way, and so he took them that way. I don't know. Nobody knows. But the story is told with enough context and kind of support, I would say, that it is entirely suitable for young children, while also imparting some really important information. There are full-page drawings at the start of each chapter. There's the girls eating berries. And let's talk about resource extraction, actually. That was kind of like a common theme in my reading this week. In this book, they're talking about salmon fisheries and how the salmon runs aren't returning in the present day. What was the other book that had resource extraction? Well, there were others. Oh, of course, the ocean one. The seabed mining, and then the oil extraction in Africa, and then the fisheries in this book. And I'm in the process of reading something else right now that I haven't finished that also deals with that topic. Oh, this is our world. But I am going to be passing this book on to my great niece, Adara, because her father is part Kaska. His heritage is actually back to the same community that these girls came from. And she's the right age for this as well. So looking forward to sending that to her. And then it reminded me of a picture book by Nicola Campbell that I had read a number of years ago. That one came out in 2005. It's called Shi-shi-etko, which is the little girl's name. It means she who loves to play in the water. And in the picture book, Shishi-etko is counting down the sleeps until she has to go away to residential school. 4 more sleeps, 3 more sleeps, and each day she goes out with a family member and says, I will remember this, I will remember this, I will remember this. It's got these gorgeous soft illustrations done by Lafave, and so it has some similarities to the story behind Aggie and Mudgy, in that it's about getting there. But the names, Shishi-etko is her, it's a Salish language. I think it might be but I'm not sure. Aggie and Mudgy had their names changed. Their Kaska names were changed to, I think, Agnes and Martha, but they called each other Aggie and Mudgy. And one last picture book, Stand Like a Cedar, also by Nicola Campbell, but this one is illustrated by Carrielynn Victor. And the way that this girl is standing on the front, that's what's meant by stand like a cedar. It is a position that shows honor, love, and respect for the world. And this book is basically a walk through the natural environment. in the coastal and central Salish area. And talking about the natural foods, there's a berry picking one. And the text also introduces words from 3 different Indigenous languages, all one from the Thompson River Salish and 2 different coastal Salish languages. There's more than 24 Salish languages and many more dialects. And I find it interesting that they've included 3 different languages in this one. But on each page, whenever that the Indigenous word is used or phrase, there's also the English translation, and then there's a pronunciation guide at the back. But it is tricky. All right. So what else have I got? I'm not going to go into what I'm currently reading. You can see that next week because I'll probably be finished all of those. Coming up this week, I'm going to be finishing watching the film adaptation of Station 11. I've seen 5 episodes so far and I love it. And this coming Thursday, I'm going to be doing a Zoom coffee chat with this organization in Edmonton that's called Aging with Pride. And I'm the featured speaker, and I'm going to be talking about a project that I did at the Edmonton Public Library, way back in the mid-90s. And that was to start identifying fiction with rainbow spine labels. And there were many hurdles and unexpected consequences along the way. So yeah, I'm looking forward to revisiting that experience. And I suppose if any of you are interested, you probably could sign up for this hour-long coffee thing. Since it's Zoom, yeah, I'll put a link down below. And I also wanted to mention that Elizabeth from Bouquin and Books, she recently talked about how being a new booktuber has changed her, I don't know if I want to say identity, but she's just approaching like going to the bookstore in a new way. This is what she was talking about in her episode, about how she thought, I'm a booktuber now, and so I'm going to do this. So if you're curious, I'm going to link to her video, and I could really identify because earlier this week, when our street was cleared of snow, there were these big graders going by, and I stood in the window and just watched and watched and watched. And after they were done, I thought, darn, I could have videotaped that and shown you a clip. But they came back last night and did the little crescent near me, so you can see a short clip of the type of equipment that clears the streets here. It usually only happens once in the winter, and that was it. So yeah, thank you so very much for watching, and please leave comments down below, especially if you're a knitter, and also if you've read any of these books or you can recommend something along similar lines. Yeah, thanks for watching.